Welcome to this explainer. I want you to just take a slow, deep breath with me. Picture a really dark, stormy night. The year is 1752. Benjamin Franklin has just walked away from literally one of the most famous experiments in scientific history. He spent years obsessing over this invisible, kind of mysterious force called electricity. Now imagine a massive flash of light, some impossible machine appears, and Franklin steps inside. Bam! He travels exactly 3 centuries forward. He opens his eyes, and it's the year 2026. The horse-drawn carriages, totally gone. The dim, candlelit rooms, gone. And what he actually sees instead is going to completely change how we view our very own world.
Okay, so let's dive right into this mind-bending contrast. To really get why he'd be so shocked, we've got to remember the world he actually came from. Back in the 1750s, scientists were barely figuring out how to make sparks or store tiny electrical charges in these glass Leyden jars. His whole kite experiment was really just to see if storm clouds even carried a charge, which, by the way, was an incredibly dangerous thing to do. But now, look at our reality in 2026. Cars driving themselves without horses, giant buildings piercing the sky, artificial intelligence, global communication networks. He's stepping into an America where electricity is just everywhere. Let that 300-year leap really sink in for a second. He's gone from a world of tiny, solitary sparks to a world of endless glowing screens. Now, what's really fascinating here is how electricity itself has evolved. Franklin looks at our modern power lines, the electric trains, the massive data centers, the hospitals, and he quickly figures out that electricity isn't just some curious little phenomenon that scientists study in a lab anymore. As the US Department of Energy points out, it literally supports all of our critical infrastructure. The electrical grid is this continuous system, constantly balancing supply and demand. It's the absolute foundation of modern life. When Franklin realizes this, he whispers this profound truth. Electricity has literally become our civilization's bloodstream.
So imagine he wanders into a modern American home and checks out the kitchen. He sees an induction cooktop. Someone turns it on, and a pot of water just starts boiling instantly. Franklin just stares at it. "Where's the fire?" he asks.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates his whole mindset. Back in the 18th century, according to the Library of Congress, he actually invented the Franklin stove. It used iron plates and controlled airflow to spread heat around and use way less wood. The guy was completely obsessed with efficiency. Fast forward, and he's staring at this induction cooktop. We explained to him that it uses electromagnetic fields to induce currents right into the cookware, zero flame. And as the Department of Energy notes, this method can be up to 3 times more efficient than a traditional gas stove. Franklin just smiles at this. To him, we haven't just learned how to make energy, we've learned how to use it incredibly well.
Let's move forward and see how this scales up, because it gets even grander. I want you to think about this number very slowly. 35,800 kilometers. That is exactly how high up NOAA's geostationary weather satellites are orbiting right now, right above the Earth's equator. Remember, Franklin was a guy who studied the weather, storms, the Gulf Stream, but he did it using his own 2 eyes. Now, we have to tell him that we are looking at the entire Earth from the freezing absolute vacuum of space.
And the crazy part is, we aren't just looking at fluffy clouds up there. The crucial point is what these NOAA GOES-R generation satellites can actually do. They use an advanced baseline imager with 16 different spectral bands. We're talking visible and infrared channels. We literally track hurricanes, massive wildfires, volcanic ash, and even solar eruptions, all in real time. We've effectively taken our grandest scientific laboratories and just placed them way above the Earth itself.
But there's this one specific instrument on that satellite that stops Franklin dead in his tracks, the geostationary lightning mapper. It tracks thousands of lightning flashes across the hemisphere, continuously, day and night. Franklin stares at the monitor, watching this happen. He goes completely silent, and with this utter sense of awe, he whispers, "When I studied lightning, I had to wait for the storm. Now, thousands of scientists are watching it continuously from space."
But as Franklin keeps exploring our world, his awe kind of starts to mix with this quiet sadness. We show him airplanes that cross the Atlantic in a matter of hours, a trip that literally took him weeks. We show him fiber optic cables, the internet. We've completely removed physical distance. But then he looks around a typical living room. He sees families sitting together, totally silent, their faces just glowing from these rectangular screens. We conquered the entire globe, but somehow we sometimes forget to speak to the person sitting right next to us.
He asks to take a closer look at one of those screens, the modern smartphone.
Inside this tiny little device is just a miraculous convergence of technologies. You've got semiconductors, digital computing, optics, satellite navigation, software, the whole shebang. And what's absolutely wild is that researchers at the Smithsonian actually trace a direct, unbroken technological chain from Franklin's own electrical experiments in 1752, right straight to the telecommunications tech inside the phone in your pocket right now. He holds the phone. He makes a video call to India in an instant.
He realizes this little block of glass and metal can hold millions of books. It can send unlimited letters instantly across the planet. He smiles at the sheer power of it all. But then he looks at us and asks a devastatingly simple question. Then why do you still argue with strangers?
You know, before we explore the darker side of our future, I want to ask you directly, what do you think would shock Benjamin Franklin the absolute most about our modern world? Would it be AI, space travel, or maybe something as simple as a glowing screen? Take a second right now to like this explainer, share it with someone who loves history or tech, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can keep exploring these fascinating deep dives together. All right, let's look at what happens when Franklin actually meets everyday people.
See, Franklin never just wanted to meet presidents or kings. His real curiosity was always with everyday people. He wanders through a modern neighborhood. He meets a student studying computer science on a laptop. He talks to a doctor who's using medical imaging to look inside the human body without making a single cut. But the moment that delights him the absolute most is when he meets a child. The kid tells him that humans travel to space now, and that we can even talk to the astronauts. Franklin is just amazed, and he asks, why do people travel into space? And the child simply says, to learn. Franklin just beams. That is a language he understands perfectly.
Shortly after that, Franklin walks into a store, and someone hands him a modern $100 bill. He looks down at it and just freezes. He sees his own face. He examines the incredible technology packed into the paper itself, the security thread, the 3D security ribbon, the color-shifting ink, the watermark portrait. He asks the cashier if he's famous, and the cashier says, "You helped build America." Franklin looks at his portrait real quietly and says, "I hope I helped build more than a country."
But as his journey goes on, Franklin starts asking some really heavy, difficult questions. Let's really slow down and look at this comparison for a second. On one hand, we have miraculous technological power. We've got limitless information, AI that can mimic human reasoning, and honestly, remarkably easy lives. But Franklin also sees the dark side. He sees enormous energy consumption. He sees mountains of electronic waste piling up. He sees kids glued to screens, this deep epidemic of loneliness, and misinformation just spreading globally in an instant. He realizes that our technological progress is sprinting, but our social wisdom, it's barely crawling. Standing there in front of a glittering skyline, completely surrounded by the invisible forces of electricity that he literally helped discover, Franklin delivers a really sobering message to humanity. He tells us that we have become incredibly powerful. We've achieved the extraordinary. But he leaves us with this profound thought. Progress is not the same as wisdom.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, what advice would he actually leave us? Well, the sources outline 5 steps based on his life philosophy. First, make energy cleaner and more efficient. We know how to make it, now we just have to use it responsibly. Second, use our satellite weather tracking not just to collect data, but to genuinely protect people and communities from disaster. Third, make technology serve human beings, instead of making us dependent on it. Fourth, protect curiosity above everything else. And fifth, connect our technological progress directly to our human progress, because science is only really valuable when it uplifts us. Let's look a little closer at that third point. Franklin invented things to solve real physical problems. Today, we build apps, AI, robotics, sometimes just because we can. Franklin challenges us with a really vital question. What problem are you solving? Before we build the next massive algorithm or device, we have to ask ourselves, who benefits here? Who is harmed? And does this actually make humans more capable? And this brilliantly illustrates his most passionate plea: protect curiosity. Franklin was a guy who experimented, failed, and just tried again. He warns us not to let modern education turn our kids into machines that just memorize answers for a test. We have to teach them to ask why. How? What if? Because literally every major technological revolution in history started with someone asking a question that everybody else thought was impossible or even silly.
As Franklin prepares to step back into the time machine, he looks at our modern world one last time. We learn to capture energy. We learn to watch storms from space. We learn to completely conquer distance. We've built machines way beyond his wildest 18th century imagination. But he looks right at us and points out the one thing we haven't mastered yet. The one unfinished experiment is ourselves.
Franklin wouldn't tell us to stop inventing. No way. He would tell us to invent better. Not just faster, not just more profitably, but better for humanity. We already know that our technology can do almost anything. So the greatest question of the next 300 years isn't what can technology do, it's what should humanity choose to do with that immense power.
I want to leave you with this final, really beautiful thought from our exploration today. Just read this slowly. The future doesn't belong to those who know everything. It belongs to those who never stop asking why. Think about it. Perhaps the next Benjamin Franklin is a child sitting in a classroom right now, asking a question nobody else even thought to ask.
I really hope this explainer sparked some of that curiosity in you today. If you enjoyed this wild journey from 1752 to 2026, please take a quick moment to hit that like button, share this explainer with a friend, and leave a comment with your biggest takeaway. And definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can continue unraveling these fascinating topics together. Stay curious, and I will see you in the next explainer.